good to go.
Should I
And
share it to Facebook?
no, just you got it. Hey everybody, looks like we're live. Welcome to our Success Mastermind for Thursday, April 8th, 2021. John Lavenia here with you as usual. What a tremendous day we had yesterday. I know it was an abbreviated day because we did not have networking magic, but my goodness, did Glenn deliver yesterday or what on general session with the whole imposter syndrome, overcoming said syndrome. I told Glenn, in fact, I called him privately and I said, that was like the best general session you've ever done. So I don't know if anybody else gave Glenn love on that. I think you did in the chat and everything, but wow. And of course, if you're seeing this on YouTube or Facebook or wherever you might see the the public viewing recordings, you I think deserve to be in this group and hang out with guys like Glenn and some of these other awesome people that we're seeing here who've already tuned in. Adrian and John Apogee, Sharon. Actually, I'm not the host today. You know what? Before I accidentally start hosting this, I'm going to pass over controls to someone who you know and love, who I've referred to as my secret weapon often. And she's going to be hosting every other Thursday moving forward, as our friend Jamie Young has been um, taken into custody. That doesn't sound right. By his work, he's got direct conflicts now with his schedule, so he's going to be taking a break from hosting our general sessions. We're still going to have our friend Mark Riggle, as long as he's not on jury duty, coming out every other Thursday. But for your participating pleasure, let me reintroduce you to the one, the only, the awesome, every other Thursday host, Shannon Lavenia.
Yay!
With that awesome new backdrop that we put up, was it a week, 2 weeks ago now? Yeah, gorgeous.
Yeah. Yes. I have been wanting to paint my wall for a while, and John has been like, no, I don't think we really need to paint it. And then I've changed it like 15 times, or I've had him hang different things on the wall. And then finally, I think he realized that it was actually less work to just let me paint it. so, so we painted it, got this beautiful artwork, and it goes along with my rebrand because John and I are merging our brands together to align really well. So that's pretty exciting. So anyways, I'm so excited to be here with all of you. I see so many familiar faces, and there's Lindsay on there as well. And I'm excited for today's topic. Honestly, an hour ago, I had no idea what I was going to talk about. And then, as usually occurs, something serendipitous happens, right? Which brings to the forefront a topic that I think is perfect to talk about, especially when I just heard Sandy also talking about all the stuff she has on her plate and like really dealing with a lot of that stuff. So this morning, so every morning I go for a walk. Sometimes I remember to turn on the Strava app, and you guys can see that I'm out for a walk. And then sometimes I forget to turn it off, and it looks like I've been walking for 4 days straight, but that's not the case. I just forget to turn it off. So every morning I go for a walk for about 45 minutes, sometimes a little bit longer. And this morning I was out for a walk with our dog, Jag, who's a bit of a scaredy cat. And I was talking to my mother-in-law on the walk. So I'm coming back from my walk, and I did animal rescue for many years. So I'm a very conscious pet owner. So when I walk my dog and I see another dog coming, I move to the side, I have my dog sit, I let the other dog pass. We avoid like conflicts this way. This way we're all having like a good experience. So this morning I'm walking back, I'm on the phone with my mother-in-law. We're planning a trip to go see her in June. We're talking about all the stuff we're going to do. And I see this woman with 3 large dogs. And the woman is like maybe, I don't know, 2/3 my size. She's like petite woman, and she has the dogs kind of tied around her waist. But they're big dogs. They're like big, they look like Labradoodle type dogs, right? Maybe 80, 100 pounds each, like pretty big dogs. So I see it coming. So I'm like all the way over on the other side of the street. And then I decide I'm going to cut across the park to get back to my house. So I'm not taking the usual sidewalk or whatever. So, so I have a plan, right? Like I assess the situation and now I have a plan and I'm operating from my plan. And my plan is to cut across the park and avoid this woman and her dogs. And our dog is new to us. We've only had Jag. How long we have had Jag, John? Maybe about a month. Yeah, maybe 2 months. Oh, so he's relatively new to us, right? So we haven't had like a lot of situational assessments, like where we're like, okay, now this is the dog with an aggressive dog, and like now we know how they interact and stuff like that. We haven't really had any of that because I kind of just keep them, at a distance. So I'm like halfway across the park, and this woman loses control of one of her dogs, and the dog bounds across the street full speed towards me, barking incessantly. And now I have like a real problem, right? So there's this like 100-pound dog bounding across the street at full speed, barking super loud. I can't tell if the dog's aggressive or not aggressive. I don't know if my dog's aggressive or not aggressive. So I immediately drop the leash on my dog because dogs on a leash can be more aggressive because they're on a leash. I don't know if you guys know that, but if they're restrained, they can actually be more aggressive. So if in a situation like that, your best move is to drop the leash. So I dropped the leash, and my dog, in all of his, masculine energy, quickly cowers and hides behind me so that the other dog can attack me first, right? So now I'm the barrier between him and the other dog. And this isn't a little dog. He's like 50 pounds, right? And the other dog is like circling around me, barking incessantly, bouncing around. There's two landscapers over to the side who are like trying to decide, do they run over? Like I can see them kind of like, do we drop our, like what's happening here? The woman's looking ridiculously helpless on the other side of the street. And now I'm yelling across the street at the top of my lungs, control your dog, right? And my mother-in-law is still on my earbuds, right? And I'm screaming, control your dog, control your dog. So she somehow gets the dog. She doesn't move. Now she's stationary. The woman is frozen in space, right? Like she's just frozen with the other two dogs, seemingly doesn't know what to do here. So she calls her dog. The dog comes back across the street, but she's not able to get it. So it bounds back across the street towards me a second time, barking incessantly. My dog now recowers behind me because I'm obviously the best defense between me and the dog, right? And one of the reasons we got a dog was because I walk at night sometimes, and I was like, it'd be really nice to have a dog that I could walk with at night, right? When now we know, like if someone did approach me with a knife or something, my dog would probably be like, just go ahead, finish your stabbing, and then, please push her body over me so that you can't see me, right? That's my dog. So not very like protective at all, which is cool with kids or whatever. So she finally gets control of her dog, and I yell across the street. I say, if you can't control your dogs, take one at a time, right? Because it's completely terrifying. Lucky for me, I'm a pretty agile person. But there's a lot of older people that walk their dogs in my neighborhood. There's a lot of kids that walk dogs in the neighborhood. So if that dog had gone, unfortunately, my dog is a wuss, because if my dog had been aggressive, like my last dog, Lucy would have attacked, right, John? Like Lucy would have flat out attacked the other dog. And she was not an attack dog, but if you like messed with any of her family, she was a border collie, she would have attacked the dog, and it would have been a whole nother scenario, right? So the whole situation resolves, and I come back, and I was talking to John, and I said, I know the exact topic to talk about today. And I talked to some of the ladies from my CEO Freedom Accelerator in here as well. And they'll recall an exercise that I have them do very early on when they start the accelerator. But what I want to talk to you about is, how do you deal with a problem? And there's constant problems that come up in life that, that's part of the game of life, right? It's like a problem comes, we have to handle it, we get the sense of accomplishment of fulfilling it, or we move on with it. And it's really one of the ways that we as human beings in this world grow, is we have problems and then we foster up solutions. Well, there's really 4 ways to approach a problem. I'm going to take you through the 4 ways to approach a problem. So the very first way is the way that I handled that problem with the dog, bounding at me. And you can kind of think of, and I'll take you through, because it'll be kind of funny to just walk through this scenario of the 4 different ways, right? So the dog comes running at me, and immediately I confront the problem, right? I drop my dog. I'm full on with eye contact with this other dog. I'm yelling at the woman to get control of her dog. I'm assessing the situation, right? I know there's a little kid at the park. I know there's 2 landscapers there. There's another guy off to the side. And then shortly after, I see John on his bike, right? So I'm kind of assessing the situation. So when we have a problem in life, one of the things that we can do is we can just like full on confront it head on, deal with the problem, and then solve it, right? Now, there's a little bit more to that problem, and I'm still debating what to do, but I know where the woman lives, and her dogs are constantly barking at us from the balcony. So I think I'm going to go over and knock on her door and just have a conversation and see what I can do to help her to not have that happen again, right? Because I want her to understand, if it was an older person, they could have flat out had a heart attack. If it was a little kid that was walking a dog, that the dog is now protecting the kid, and little kids don't know what to do. They can get their arms in there trying to save their dogs and stuff, right? It could have been a very gnarly situation. So, I'm probably going to go knock on her door and just flat out confront the problem, and then do everything I can to work out a solution to not have it happen again. And in life, we often have things like that. Like maybe here in the United States, common problems that can happen if you're a business owner is you can get a letter from the IRS, right? You filed your taxes, and now the IRS wants to audit you, or says you owe more money, or, your refund hasn't come, or whatever, right? Those are problems that can happen. Maybe I know, Sandy, it's your product I bought, right? There's so many emails I get in a day, right? This is your product.
No, Shannon, that's not mine.
Oh, okay. It's someone on this lines. Susan, Sandy, someone's product.
It's Sonia's.
Sonia's problem. So Sonia's product, not problem. Okay, Sonia, it's your product, right? So Sonia had a problem with her product in that the nozzle doesn't work properly, right? So she has to have them changed out. And I bought the product so that I can give her a really good review while that's happening, right? And it actually does smell amazing. Like it's made with roses, which is one of my favorite scents. So I've been spraying it all over the place. Okay, so that's how you like confront a problem, right? So Sonia said, oh my gosh, I got a bad review. What is the problem? Let me get it fixed right now, right? Confront, handle. Another way that you can solve a problem, or another way that you can handle a problem, is you can just ignore it. So, in my situation with the dog bounding at me, I could have just acted like nothing was happening and went on my merry way, right? I could have just ignored the problem. And in that case, it might not have been a problem, because it turned out the dog wasn't aggressive. I think the dog really wanted to play, but is like an extremely exuberant, loud barking dog, right? So any normal person in a park, when a strange 100-pound dog comes bounding at them, barking incessantly, is going to feel a bit of fear, right? Unless you're like a trained Navy SEAL and you're like, I confront, underwater bombs and this is nothing, right? That's not me. I'm like, the dog might bite me and now I'm going to have to, go get stitches, and my whole work day is going to be messed up because of this, right? Like these are the things that are coming through my mind, right? So you can ignore a problem and hope that it'll go away. But when we ignore problems, they don't often go away. In fact, usually what happens is they continue to fester. And get bigger and bigger and bigger, right? So in the situation with the IRS, if the IRS sent a letter saying you owe us $800 and you were like, well, I don't have $800 right now, I don't want to pay it, and you just stick it in a drawer and you ignore it, well, that problem's not going to go away, right? The IRS isn't suddenly going to just forget that you owe them $800. Instead, they're going to send you another bill saying now it's $850 because now it's what you owe us plus interest, right? Then the next year it's, $950, right? So ignoring it can oftentimes compound the problem. And where I see a lot of times people ignoring problems, there's kind of a couple causes of that. One is confusion. They see the problem, but they don't know how to handle it. So the thought that comes up is, I'll handle this later, right? I'll do this later. But then later doesn't ever really come, right? And it's still there. And the worst part of it is it's still taking up mental space. Because when you have attention on a problem, even though you're ignoring it, it's still there. And it's there. And it's just kind of festering in the side, right? So one is confusion. Two is when it involves a relationship, a personal relationship, and you don't know what to say or how to handle it. And there's some, fear or confusion there too, right? So an example of that would be, two people are in a relationship, the spouse is cheating, the other spouse knows, but the other spouse doesn't say anything because they have no idea what to do. So they're just ignoring the problem, right? Or a parent has a child, the child's doing something that isn't optimal, the parent doesn't know what to do about it, so they just ignore it, right? Like, I'm going to ignore this problem and eventually they'll grow out of it. Doesn't typically happen, right? Like at some point they're going to have to deal with it. So interpersonal relationships can be another reason to ignore it. And then the third reason is they just really don't want to, right? They don't want to deal with it. They want to go on with life and not handle whatever this problem is, right? So you can ignore a problem. So, and I'm going to give you some strategies on how to like handle any of these scenarios, because what might be coming up for you right now is like popping in your mind. There might be situations coming in your mind where you're like, man, Shannon, I'm not too happy with this call because you just remind me of this problem I've been ignoring for the last 6 months, right? So don't worry, I'm not going to leave you with it. I am going to give you some strategies on what to do with it. The third way that you can approach a problem is you can run from it. So you can, like in the dog scenario, when the dog came bounding at me, I could have just started running, which probably would have been pretty hilarious because I'm not very good at running right now. And I think the dog would have gotten even more excited about it if we had. So I could have just ran from the dog. Now, when I was 8 years old, I was a Girl Scout, and Girl Scouts sell Girl Scout cookies, right? So I sold Girl Scout cookies in my neighborhood, and there was a house around the corner. There were two guys that lived there, and they had a dog, and I went to go deliver the Girl Scout cookies. Now, like in our neighborhood, I mean, this was like, 39 years ago, right? Like everyone knew everybody. You'd go sit on the porch at night, people would get their lawn chairs out and you'd sit in the middle of the street and everybody would drink a beer. You know what I mean? Like everyone just knew everybody. But we didn't know these two guys very well because they were new to the neighborhood. And one of the things that my grandfather told me was that when I would deliver the cookies, if they weren't home, to go put them on the back porch, not the front, right? Which I felt totally comfortable. I had been in their backyard before. They lived right next to my Uncle Gus, and like we would play in the yards and stuff like that. So I went into the backyard to drop off the Girl Scout cookies, and their dog was out, and the dog started growling at me. And I'd never met this dog before. It was a Dalmatian. I'd never met this dog before. So what did I do? I was 8 years old. I ran, and the dog ran after me and bit me. So got a big chunk of my butt right there. And then the old guy who lived across the street, who was like, I don't know, late 80s, early 90s, he came out he heard me screaming, and he came out and he beat the dog off me with a whiskey bottle, of all things. So he came out, he was a German guy, and he came out and he beat the dog off me with a whiskey bottle. And then he poured the whiskey on the cut, which I don't know if you've ever experienced alcohol on a wound, but I think I screamed louder from that than I did from the dog bite. But I learned in that moment, like one of the things my grandfather taught me. So I had to go get stitches. I got stitches. And then on the way home from the hospital, my grandfather did something that was actually pretty brilliant. He took me to a dog pound and he had me just be with dogs, right? He had me like be with the other dogs, and he had me look at the dogs. And then he had me kind of say, you know, do you think that dog's a good dog? Do you think that dog's a mean dog? Do you, you know, so he had me like really look at them and kind of assess the dogs. And that gave me confidence back around being with other dogs, but it also gave me confidence of knowing that I could judge a dog, right? So I could judge a dog. So that just shows you a little bit of both of those, right? Where I ran from a problem and kind of what happens. So if you run from a problem, the lesson is it's always going to bite you in the ass. That's the lesson. And so, and you know, so I ran from it, and then my grandfather in his brilliance had me just confront it at the same time, because he didn't want me to be a kid who was afraid of dogs. My grandfather was also the type of guy where, like, if I had an injury and I was like, look, I cut my hand, you know, playing outside, he would be like, okay, come here, you know, and he would have me put my other hand in a vise, and then he would get a hammer and I'd be like, what are you doing? He's like, well, I'm going to hit that hand because then that hand won't hurt, you know? And I was like, no. And he was like, well, does your other hand hurt? And I was like, no, because it took my attention off of it, you know? But he never hit me with a hammer, so don't worry. But like, that was just his way of doing it. It was kind of funny. That and duct tape. Any wound that I had, I mean, I put my knee through a window, you could see like inside, he duct taped it, right? Like that was his solution, because he was in World War II. He was in World War II, and that's what they did in the battlefields when men got injured. They used duct tape or mechanical tape. He was the guy who fixed the, you know, the tanks and stuff. He was a machinist, so he was always on the front line fixing the tanks so that the guys could get out of there. So he was always doing that. And they would seal up wounds with mechanical tape or duct tape, right? Nowadays, my kid comes, it's like we have to use Neosporin and the correct rainbow Band-Aid. And, you know, it's so funny, you know, different times. Okay, so we have confront it, we have run from it, we have ignore it. And then the last way that you can deal with a problem is you can just succumb to it. So I could have just looked at the dog, laid down in the park and said, come eat me. You know, there's nothing I can do. There's nothing I can do about this. You know, if you're going to bite me, whatever. And we see a lot of that in society, where people will have a problem. And to us, it might seem, you know, not like a big problem. And to them, it's a life or death problem. And they're basically just ready to lay down and let the problem succumb them. Right. So I'll give you an example in real life too. So John and I, 2009 to 2012 was a very interesting time in our life, in our relationship. So in 2009, in December, we owned a company with a friend of ours, and we did the deal on a handshake, right? We had been friends for a long time, made lots of money together, did this deal on a handshake. And he ended up having an affair with a woman in Australia, took all the money out of the company, and like left us high and dry. Right. So we were like, the company fell apart, all of our income went away. And while we had some money in reserves and we had invested some money, we had invested a lot of money in real estate. And I don't know how it was internationally, but here in the United States in 2010, it was a free fall. So all of our properties were worth way less than what we had paid for them, right? So we're upside down in all of our real estate. We now are close to seven-figure income is gone. We're in the turmoil of a betrayal of a friend, right? And the way out for us after consulting attorneys and everything else was bankruptcy. So we end up doing bankruptcy, right? We're like, okay, we're just going to confront this problem. We're going to do a bankruptcy. Our bankruptcy was pretty epic for Tucson. It was several millions of dollars in real estate holdings and everything else. And we do the bankruptcy. It's like the fastest bankruptcy cycle our attorney had ever seen in his life. And I was like, okay, if we're going to do this, we're going to do it like a champ. Like, tell me exactly what I need to do. I want this to be really short. I want it to be one and done, over quickly, so that we can get on with our life. And he basically gave us like a plan. He was like, you need to sell all of your stuff, keep a record of selling it. You need to take all the money that you did from selling your stuff and buy anything you can from this list, because you could buy unlimited food, diapers, stuff like that. So keep in mind, we just had a baby too. So Trinity was born in October 2010, right? So he gives us a list. He's like, sell everything you have, buy everything you can off of this other list, keep all of the receipts. And then the day you file bankruptcy, you need to move as far away as possible. And because if you are keeping anything, which you would never let anybody know about, like your wedding ring or anything like that, you want to be very far away, right? So I was like, do you think that'll make it go faster? He was like, yeah. So we did that. We did yard sales. We sold everything. We sold our cars. We bought like a lifetime supply of diapers and canned food that we had shipped to my in-laws in Delaware. And then, their whole basement was full of like, I bought every level of car seat for my daughter, anything that they said you could buy, we stocked up on, because we had no income and we didn't know how long this bankruptcy was going to go for, and we needed to reinvent ourselves. So any money that we were able to get in, we wanted to be able to invest in business and not buy food and diapers and stuff like that with. So we did that, right? So we literally confronted the scenario. Now, the other side of that is I have friends who went through bankruptcy at the same time we went through, and they're still dying from it. Literally, just like it's the defining moment of their life. They can't get past it. And I'm like, dude, in Arizona, over 60% of business owners filed bankruptcy between 2009 and 2014. 60%. Like, that's what the bankruptcy laws are designed for. Like, they're made for that. So I was like, all right, let's move on. So some people have completely succumbed from a similar problem, where we were like, okay, we're hitting reset, right? We're hitting reset and we're just going to get through this and get on with it. And then within, I don't know, a year or so, we were back to making six figures. And a year after that, we were at multiple six figures, and we were able to get ourselves, back up out of it. So, and we wouldn't have been able to do that if we hadn't filed bankruptcy, because they were putting liens on our bank accounts and everything. And so it's like, at that point, like every penny you're making is going to debt. There's no way you'll ever pay off. Right. So that's the fourth way that you can deal with the problem, is you can just succumb to it. And some people do, some people go through a divorce, and that becomes like their whole life after that is their divorce, or they have a loss, a personal loss, and their whole life after that is defined in that loss, right? They've basically succumbed to it. And I also saw that when I was on my cancer journey, and it's one of the reasons why I had to kind of exit a lot of the cancer groups, was because even when people were beyond it, the conversation didn't change. And my feeling when I got diagnosed, John and I were very much about just confronting and solving the problem. We did our research. I went through the treatments, and, I just kept visualizing the doctor saying you're cured. And my doctor did say I'm cured. And people are always surprised by that. They're like, your doctor actually used the C word. And I'm like, he did. He said, I'm cured. There's no cancer, right? So that's kind of what you get from being able to confront it. So I want to take you guys through a couple of very simple things that you can do with any of the problems that you have in life that you're ignoring, running from, or you feel like you're succumbing to it. And when we're entrepreneurs, oh my gosh, you're going to have a little bit of everything at any given time. And there are going to be some days where you're like, F it, I'm just succumbing to it today, right? Like the ice cream's coming out and I'm going to be watching reruns of MasterChef. And that's how today is going to go. And that's okay, right? Because you can selectively choose to do that. But the next day, you don't want to do the same thing. The next day, you want to get yourself out of it, right? But sometimes the problem can be so immense that you do need to just take a break and a breather and, get on from it. It's not like every day that I was going through cancer treatment, I was like rainbows and unicorns and like, I'm getting through this. There were some days where I'm like, at one point I was like, I'm not doing any more chemotherapy. I'm done. I'm not doing it. And John immediately called my breast surgeon, who gave us his cell phone number, the most amazing guy ever. He's at a wedding. He steps out of the wedding to talk to John and I for like an hour, right? To talk me off the ledge of, I'm not talking to any doctors anymore. And I'm going to do this with, vegetable juice. And so it was a good conversation, you know what I mean? So sometimes you do, you have these different moments. So don't think that in any way, if you're not confronting your problems head on all the time, that's not okay. It's totally okay. The thing to recognize is like, if you leave a problem too long and you ignore it for too long, it just gets bigger. If you run from a problem too long, eventually it's going to bite you in the ass. And if you succumb to it, then you're literally making that decision. That's your decision to succumb, right? The problem hasn't caused you to succumb. It's your decision to succumb that is causing that, right? And if you realize that there's a lot of power in that, that's then saying, well, screw it. I don't want to succumb to this. I'm going to get on with it and do it. So I'm going to give you some of the strategies that I share with the women and the men that are in the CEO Freedom Accelerator to handle these things right off the bat. Because with rapid growth, like one of the things that you really have to do if you want rapid growth is you have to kind of gather up all the stuff that's lingering and just handle it to create the space for the growth at that speed. Right? The growth of the speed that you want. So the first thing that you want to do is you want to look at any incomplete cycles of action that you have currently and list those out. And I do this in an exercise with my group, and you can just do it in a notebook, but you want to think about anything that you started that you didn't finish. Okay, so anything you started that you didn't finish, and you want to make a list of it on paper. Because here's the trick to this. I also have my people use a paper planner, and that in itself, sometimes yesterday on our coaching call in the accelerator, one of the ladies, Jackie, who I got using a paper planner, she's an insurance agent. She has signed more business in the last 2 months than she did in all of 2020, using this method of planning, right? So if you put something on paper, right? Like this is my current list that I'm working off of. If you put something on paper, you're looking out at it, right? So you're able to look out at it and see it and actually attack it, right? So you're looking out and you're attacking it. If you keep it in your head, you're looking in, right? You're literally in your head. I know this is a bit of a lofty concept, but like you're looking in your head. And when you're looking in your head, you're looking at everything else that's floating around in there too, right? Like I have to go get the groceries. Oh my gosh, what are we having for dinner? I have to remember to sign my daughter up for school. wait, Bobby's birthday is Friday, right? You're like, all of these things are in there circulating around. When you get it on paper, you're able to look at it and focus and say, okay, I'm going to do this thing now. And I'm going to do it from when I start it to when I finish it. That's called the complete cycle of action. And some things you can't finish in one day, right? But then you keep it on the list and you know it's there and you know that you're dealing with it, right? So putting it out on paper, getting all of the incomplete things on paper. The other thing is, for all of us, you're all entrepreneurs and you've all purchased courses, programs, books, things to help you in your business that are incomplete, unfinished, and half read, right? Is there anyone in here who doesn't have an incomplete course, unread book? Or, okay. So you're probably like, how does she know this, right? Because I've done all of this, right? I have literally done all of this. And I've had my own coaches say, finish reading the effing book, right? Just finish reading the book. And I'll like sit there and I'll read the book. And at the end, I'm like, oh my gosh, the most amazing breakthroughs ever, right? Have come from this book. So you want to also put on your list all of those unfinished things, because though there's an emotional attachment to paying for something and not doing it or not completing it or not finishing it. But when you look at it, I don't want you to automatically assume that you do have to complete it. What I want you to do is I want you to look at it and decide if it's something you need to complete or you don't. Because I've bought courses where I've been like, 2 or 3 modules in and I'm like, this is bullshit. I'm not finishing this. Right. And then I make my own decision about it. Right. I once bought a course for $2,000 from a guy on email marketing. And the first 2 videos were so confusing. I felt like I was a complete moron and my own self-esteem was being degraded in this program. So I was like, I'm done. I'm out. Like, I'm not even going to finish this course. And I was totally okay with it. It was like, lesson learned, not going to do it. So I want you to decide what you want to do from that. For any problems that you're, kind of running from right now, I want you to just flip around and confront it. So I'll give you a great example. Let me think of like a really good business example of this. Okay, so we had in my agency, I have a business partner. Her name's Carla. She's absolutely amazing. And we build systems for multi-level marketing leaders, right? It's a side business that we do together. And we had a pretty big contract with a pretty big, extremely well-known dude, right? Extremely internationally renowned guy. So we get the contract, they make the payment, and then all of a sudden there's a halt in it of this other woman who also does business with him might want to be part of the deal, right? She might want to be part of the deal. So we stop everything for her to investigate and see if she wants to do it. And we run her through it a million times and we like do the pitch. It was like, I told my business partner, Carla, I was like, I've never had to do a 4th pitch on anybody in my entire 17 years of business, right? Like, I've literally sold this woman 4 times now. And she's so indecisive. So at first, like, what Carla and I got on the phone one day and I was like, I'm done. Like, I am done. Send him the money back. I don't care how many best-selling books he's bought. Like, I'm over it. I'm done. And Carla was like, okay, I get it. Just sleep on it. So I was ready to run from it. I'm like, this woman's crazy, like bona fide, like crazy person. You know what I mean? Like, I'm dealing with a crazy person now and I've pretty much figured that out. And so I'm running from it. I'm like, I'm done. So then the next morning, Carla messages me and she was like, you know what? I'm done too. But at that point by the morning, I was like, you know what? I don't want to run from this. I don't want to run from this deal. This deal's too good. This is like an ultimate connection, right? We need to just handle this woman, handle her, right? And then I got into handling, and I was literally able to predict everything that she was going to do, all the way up to, I said to Carla, I was like, okay, we're doing the last call. We're going to tell her to make a decision. She needs to make a decision by Monday, or we're running with the contract we have. We already have a contract. There's a no refund clause in it. He can't cancel it. We could keep the money anyways, whatever. Like, let's just make the final decision and deliver an amazing product. So we get on the phone with her, and we full on are like, okay, you have to make your decision. Like, this is decision time. And it's all, and I record the call. It's a Zoom call. I record it. We're laughing. I lay out the whole plan of everything we're delivering, like why it's so much value, right? So now I'm in pitch number 5, right? So I'm in pitch number 5, and she then gets on the phone with a couple of leaders in her organization and starts crying that Carla and I were abusive to her in the call, and it's a hard no. She doesn't want to work with us. And she's talked to this amazing, super wealthy, best-selling author, and he's agreed to get his attorneys on us, right? This is what she tells these leaders. Well, one of the leaders emails us and is like, whatever, right? So you would think at that moment I would be like terrified, right? This guy is super well-known. If I told you the name, you'd be like, oh yeah, right? Super well-known. And I said to Carla, I was like, I just can't see why he would want to get his attorneys with us over this amount of money. Like, it would cost him more in attorney fees, and my contract's like bulletproof. So she was like, yeah, I don't get it either. So here's what I do. I email the author and the woman on Monday, pretending we don't know that she did this call with these ladies. And I say, hey, happy Monday. It's decision day. We're so excited to get started. Let us know what you want to do. Tell us how your house shopping went, because she went on about how she was shopping for a house. And I said, oh, and by the way, here's a recording of the call in case you need to review the plan, right? So the author has his assistant listen to the call and emails us back about an hour later. She emails us and says, I'm not doing it. Thank you, whatever. He emails me back about 15 minutes later after that and said, I'm really excited to move forward, and let's just get going and create something great, right? So that's how we went through all of it. Like, on one day, and John will tell you, I was like, this lady's driving me nuts. I hate it. I don't want to do it. I'm done with this job, right? And I'm like, we're on a walk through our neighborhood at night, and I'm like on a total rant about how this woman's driving me insane. And then I tell Carla I'm done. And then the next morning, Carla's like, I'm done too. But I'm like, nope, I think we should do it. So we went through the whole scale, you know what I mean? So you can kind of look at it as a scale, a gradient scale of also how you can approach a problem. Sometimes you'll want to ignore it, but you're going to have to look at it at some point. It's not going to go away by itself, usually. You might temporarily succumb to it. It might ruin your day. You get out the ice cream and the movies and stuff like that. You might want to run from it, and I think a lot of times when we start a business that isn't working the way that we want it to work, we will have a tendency to run from it and want to start something else, right? And sometimes that is the best decision. Truly, it can be the best decision. And other times it's not, right? Other times it's just that the problems have mounted up so much that we now want to run from it, right? And sometimes people will ignore the problems in their business so much that they end up succumbing to it, because the problems do become very big, right? And that's why sometimes when I go into a company doing corporate consulting, that's kind of the scenario. They've ignored problems for too long, and now they need a fixer, right? They need someone to come in and fix some stuff. And almost always, I would say it's not rare. Like, when I go into a company, I know exactly what I'm going to be dealing with. It's almost always that they have a rogue employee that they don't want to deal with, right? Someone who's creating a lot of upset and stress and not doing their job. And they have no organizational lines. Like people don't know how their department connects to another department, or, they just don't get it. Like I went into one company where the marketing department was down on one floor and the sales department was up on another floor, and they never talked to each other. And they really had no idea how interdependent they were, right? Like the whole purpose of marketing is to drive sales, and sales has to communicate to marketing to let them know what they're going to be selling. And they weren't doing that, right? It seems fundamental, but when you're in it, it's hard to look at, right? It's hard to see. That's why coaching and mentoring and stuff like that has so much value, because you have someone on the outside looking in, seeing the problem that is like you can't see yourself. I know every time I have a coach working with me, they're always like making me look at or do the things that I'm not wanting to do, or I'm avoiding, or I'm ignoring, or things like that, right? So it can also be a gradient scale. If you are ignoring a problem, one of the things that I like to do is just do a best outcome, worst outcome kind of scenario. Like, okay, I'm going to confront this problem right now. What would be the worst outcome? What would be the best outcome? And then, what can I do to go for the best outcome? And usually whenever I think about like what the worst outcome is, it's not even that bad. It's not anything awful or terrible or something I couldn't handle in life, right? So then once I get really clear on that, then the next question is, how do I handle this? How do I handle it? So what's the best outcome? What's the worst outcome? And how do I handle it? And then you have to get it scheduled. And so I'm a bit of a tyrant about putting things on a calendar, because if it doesn't get put in your planner or on your calendar, quite frankly, it's not going to get done, right? There's always going to be something more important or something else that needs to be handled. So you want to get it on your planner. You want to get it on there. And then, yeah, so I think that's pretty much what I wanted to share with you guys today. I do want to open it up for conversation. So if you have questions or comments that you would like to add to this, just raise your hand and I'll call you out. Silence. That's it. I've stunned all of you into apathy. Emma.
Hi. Oh, it's so nice
Hi.
to have you on here. It's lovely to see you.
It's
I was
great
just
to
going
see
to
you.
add, I was just going to add really about the like you say about problems and just confronting them head on. I haven't been brilliant this week. I've been really quite ill with a bad cold, and then I had my second vaccination. And it's funny how when you're not feeling great, you definitely don't solve your problems when you're not feeling great. So I'm back on form today, and yes, I've had a couple of things that I've actually solved head on. So that's been good. But I just wanted to say that after doing your course and doing that planner, honestly, that has really changed everything that I've been doing, because whether it's like the 12-week plan on the computer and then putting it onto the Law of Attraction planner, that makes such a big difference. Because like you say, if you haven't got it written down, you're not going to get it done at all, are you? So yeah, no, that's been really good. That's been really helpful. I suppose I have a question about using an outside coach, which I think is quite interesting. What kind of coach would you recommend for somebody who is like an entrepreneur and kind of wanting to move to kind of that next level, really, I suppose?
Well, I would recommend me.
But you might say that.
That would be me. That's what I do. So yeah. So when I'm looking for a coach, I'm looking for, like right now I'm working with a coach as well. And the reason I worked with her was because she has an organic marketing strategy that I wanted to duplicate and do, and I don't particularly like doing that type of marketing. So I wanted someone who was basically going to be all over me about doing it. Right. So the type of coach that you want to look for is, somebody who's going to help you get results ultimately, and keep you on task of what you're doing. So, and that's what the accelerator is for too. Like, the results that the women are getting in the accelerator is pretty extraordinary in terms of what they're doing, because there's also a group, right? Like, having that group mastermind, I think, is a part of it, as part of a coaching program, is really essential. And it's why I foster the group to be so tight knit, because you have a true mastermind, right? You have people that are able to contribute in a way that fosters that type of growth. Does that make sense?
Yep, totally.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Okay, awesome. Cyril.
Hi.
Right.
Hi, Shannon.
Hi.
Thanks for that. I'm the kind of guy who's always got a load of projects piled up, ready. I'm waiting for me to actually finally get myself around to doing. So, you've just reminded me of, because you're perfectly right. In fact, I can be seeing it every day, but I've been seeing it for so long, I'm ignoring it. And unless I've got it written down somewhere as a list to do, it ain't going to get done. And that, so thank you for the reminder.
You're welcome.
Really helpful, because I used to, there was a time where I would just get on with them, but these days I kind of my priorities, I kind of moved to a priority system where something else needs to get done and it's much higher on the priority list, so I just deal with that. So yeah, thank you very much for the reminder. That's helpful.
You're welcome. I'm glad that it was valuable. Good. Anyone else want to pop out here? Let me look through these. Allie.
Hi, Shannon.
Hi.
Oh, yes, my camera's working. Oh, thank you so much. I have totally succumbed today. I've just been working constantly, and I just flopped today. So I'm so happy to hear you say, get the top of my scream out and just stop. I will be absolutely back on it. Well, I'm back on it now. So, thank you so much. It's brilliant. Your background looks amazing. Absolutely amazing.
Oh, thanks. You love it? I love it.
Yeah, really, really love it. Really love it. But yes, I think when you've got that unfinished thing, that is so powerful, because it's just, you might not know it, but it is there in the back of your mind. There is just that niggle, isn't there? That incomplete niggle. And I've got some things that I need to finish off, and it's just getting it done and just focusing, getting it done and finishing it. And absolutely, the plan is brilliant. So thank you for the reminder, because I must just get these little things, because I'm not focused on them at the moment. I'm thinking, oh, it doesn't matter, but actually they're still there niggling away in the back of my mind and at my focus. So just got to get it done. So yeah, thank you, Shannon. Fantastic.
Yeah, and when you get those things down on paper too, it's like you can see them there, so you know they're going to get handled at some point, right? Like, you're going to at some point do it off of your list, and then it's not sitting around in your head. So yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah, and I totally relate to that inside and outside thing. All the things going inside, it whirling around in your head. If you've got the things you're trying to remember whirling in there too, yeah, it's no good.
That's awesome.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay, Edward.
Thanks, Shannon. Hi, everybody. Shannon, this is the very, very first session that I have been on live with you. And I'm really glad I was able to make it, because I have learned quite a few things out of what you have said. I'm a big master of starting so many things. And right now, as we speak, I've got loads of stuff that I've started that I'm working on that, they kind of keep getting in the way of so many other things just because they are not finished. So I think I now have a way of dealing with the stuff. And having been on this session, I'm beginning to think of ways of how I'm going to dress up and put a bit of makeup and see if I can jump incognito into your brand builder session. Thank you very much.
That's awesome. Well, the good news is that the next round of the CEO Freedom Accelerator, John and I will be doing together. So it'll be women and men. So that's pretty exciting. I had a bunch of guys who were like, what the heck, yo? So I was like, okay.
That's a big relief, because I was thinking of where to buy the best frock that I can disguise in to join. Thanks.
That would have made it fun just to like keep it locked down.
Yeah.
That's great. Well, I'm glad that you were here.
Thank you.
Hey, Jane.
Hi, Shannon. Thank you so much for an interesting session. I have a lot of things uncompleted, and I often feel disorganized as a result. And for example, with your session, I feel, and I think I know that it will help me, but because I have so many incomplete projects going on, I feel scattered all over the place. And it's like, how do I conquer this disorganization in my thoughts and in my environment, to be able to concentrate and just finish one task at a time? So basically, it's like, as much as I would like, there's some interesting project that I know that will help me, but because I have too many uncompleted projects, I find it distracting. Is there any answer for that? Is there any, what would be your recommendation? Because like, I know that your project will help me. I know that it will help me, but I'm just really scared that, I'm not going to complete it, or probably I'm not going to be able to meet up with the requirement in terms of, yeah.
Okay, awesome. So this is a great question and I love it. And it is literally 100%, I think, every single entrepreneur deals with this, particularly when you're starting out, because when you look at a company, right? A company has divisions that handle specific things. So you have an executive division that handles like the visionary and management of the company. Then you have a division that handles like finance and hiring. You've got a finance division. You've got a division that handles hiring and dealing with employees. You've got a division that handles marketing and sales. You've got a division that handles making the product and delivering the product. You've got a division that handles like public relations and customer support, right? So a company has all of these divisions. When we start out in business, we are legit every one of those divisions, right? So we're making our product, we're sourcing it, we're figuring out how to sell it, we're figuring out how to market it, we're figuring out, how to deal with our customers. We're learning all these new tools, all of that. So we're kind of dealing with a lot of different projects at once, right? So what I do and what I recommend now, I have a team that works for me, right? So I have people that work for me, which helps a lot. But I'm going to show you guys something here. Hopefully I don't make you sick while I move my camera around here. Okay, so this is my paper planner, right? So you can see that I've got, things written on here, but I want you to look at the top. I focus on one area of my business one day a week. So the top, this might be in reverse. is
Okay.
organization and planning on Mondays. Tuesdays is promotion.
Okay.
Wednesdays is delivery. This is when I coach my students, right? So on Wednesdays. Thursdays is sales. Today is all sales calls. That's what I'll be doing.
Okay.
Friday is closing my week out and sales, right? Now on my calendar, I make blocks of time, right? So you'll see from 10 to 12, there's a block of time. During that block of time, and this is what Emma was talking about, I teach this in my challenge. During that block of time, unless there is a tornado, I am not taking any messages, alerts, notifications, knocks on my door, making meals for my family, emptying the dryer. Like none of that stuff is happening during this block of time. During this block of time, I will only do the stuff that I have on a to-do list that is for organization in my business. So the real secret to completing a project is to block out the time to do it and to not do anything else during that time. Right. So even before I sit down at my desk, I'll make sure I have a snack, my coffee, my water, like everything. Because otherwise, I can get up and go to the coffee pot. John will want to have a conversation. My daughter will want a snack. Next thing I know, half an hour out of my 2-hour block is gone. Right. So I'm super ridiculous about controlling my time, but it's also why I can work a lot less and get a lot more done and make a lot more, right? So with my team, the people that work for me, they do this method too, right? So I assign them tasks in Asana. They tell me what block of time they're going to work on those tasks, and that's what they work on. And then I don't give them extra stuff to do during that time or anything else. So what you want to do is kind of like figure out what your method is. You can do this in an Excel spreadsheet or a Google sheet where you can put, like, let me just give you an example. I'm going to share my screen here. So sometimes when I go into a company, I do this with them. Like I just did some consulting for a fashion company and their marketing guy kept saying, I'm so overwhelmed. I'm so overwhelmed. I'm so overwhelmed. I'm so overwhelmed. I need an assistant. They need to hire someone else. Like we just kept going through this. So here's what I did with him. This is what I do with, a lot of my students right off of the bat. So this is just a Google sheet, right? So in your business, you have, organization stuff you have to do. You have marketing stuff. You have product stuff. You have delivery, right? How's the product getting to someone? Customer service. If you are hiring, you could have hiring or team management, right? So then what you do is you just do a brain dump, like literally just get it out of your head. What do I need to do in marketing? I need to, finish the PPC course, make a process for PPC, like, the pay-per-click in Amazon. And I'm very process oriented. So I make checklists for everything, right? So when I say make a process for PPC, I mean, you literally write down every step. So then when you have it on your calendar, 10 o'clock on Mondays, or maybe 10 o'clock every day, you check your pay-per-click to see like where it's at. You have a little checklist that you look at. So you don't have to rethink in your mind, okay, what were the steps that I needed to do again? What are the things that I need to do this? Right. So I have like in my accelerator course, I mean, any of the ladies in there will tell you I'm insane about like I give them a lot of these things, right? This is a checklist for Instagram, but I have processes like this for everything, right? I even have one, you guys will love this one. This is a tool and course record. How many of you guys have bought a tool a tool that you use in your business that you subscribe to every month that you don't use and you still pay for, right? So like there's, you know, Helium 10 or Aweber or like, you know, so if you keep a record of all your tools, then once a month you can go look at it and be like, what am I using? What am I not using? What do I need to learn? What do I not need to learn, right? So on this spreadsheet, you just write all these things down, right? I need to, you know, redesign the package, you know, get a new logo, get, you know, my second product picked. Now you have like a running to-do list in each area.
Yeah.
Right. And then you block out time on your calendar. Okay, now for 2 hours, I'm going to work on my product to-do list. That's all you do. And you just run those 2 hours with no distractions, no emails, no phone calls, no nothing. Like my John and I have worked together for 17 years, right? So he knows the deal. Like, don't knock on the door if the door's shut, or you may end up dead. So just kidding, no. But you know, and my daughter knows too, like, these are my work hours, even though I'm one room away. You're in school with your teacher. We have a teacher who comes to the house. You're in school with your teacher. I'm at work on my business. Okay. That's where we're at. So don't knock on my door unless you're bleeding and we need to go to the emergency room and it's a genuine crisis, right? Like, that's the only reason. And that's how I get stuff done. Does that make sense? Does that answer that for you?
It does answer the question for me. Thank you very much, Shannon.
Okay. And then in terms, the other question that you had was like, worried about being a part of my program, like if you would be able to finish it. So my program, not to give a pitch for CFA, but so CFA is a very different program because it's not a linear program. The whole program is designed, how can we get you making more money faster? So there's a whole bunch of assets in there that we will say, okay, what you really need is you need an email funnel so that you can start collecting email addresses so you can sell your products. Or like Julia Wasson is in CFA and she has a puzzle company, right? So with her, we said, what you really need to do is to get on Instagram and start building up that social media with videos and stuff, because that's going to get more people interested in your puzzles and buying them, right? So she's focused on that, where someone like Lindsay is focused more on building relationships in Facebook groups to enroll people in her business. So it's not where like you study this lesson and this lesson and this lesson and this lesson and this lesson. So there's no way to really be behind. It's a structured coaching program where in the beginning we do an assessment to see where you're at in your business. And then we say, okay, you need to go to this module and this module, watch these videos and start taking these actions. And then we meet each week in the group coaching program to like, you know, further it or go back to it or, you know, things like that. So it's, and like Allie is in the program and we were like, okay, you need to, with her theater program, we were like, okay, we need to get your theater program known on social media, right? Because it's really cool and Facebook ads would be great for that. So it's very custom to like what you're doing. So there's not really a getting behind, if that makes sense, because you're on your own track.
Yeah.
Does that answer? Does that make sense?
It does make sense. It does make sense. I mean, for me, aside from, I'll go through the checklist and then we can have a one-to-one. For me, personally, I think, okay, in addition to me working full-time to be able to just pay my bills and support my children and all that, myself and my husband, we've had this business that we picked up about 20 years ago. Like, say, for example, as you said, we were just like buying properties and then we concentrate on our business, on what we're doing as a working employee and all that. And then we just give that property to probably an organization and an agent and all that and all that and all that. And so we've been doing that for years. And I'll say that business just gets me more income than my employment at the end of the financial year when my tax return is done. And now I'm getting to an age whereby, I'm not sure, my industry is very competitive, and getting in line with that competition is quite tough for me, as well as I have a young family. So basically, I would like to concentrate more on that business, because I kind of have I have people that helped me to run it, and they're willing to show me the rope. However, and I don't know how to get, like, say, for example, other properties to manage, to be able to get more income, if you see what I mean. And there's a sector that they target to be able to get the customers. So but I don't know how to do that. And so basically, I'm like, that's the area I want to go into, but I really don't know how to get into it.
Yeah. Well, I mean, getting customers in any industry, you just need to have a strategy, right?
Okay.
And that's something that we can like work on with you for sure. It's just finding out what's working for other people. And that's easy to it's pretty easy to dissect, like once you do the research and see, okay, this is what's working. Then you put together a process that you would do.
Okay. Anyway, I will, I'll follow up on when you want to do the next call on the program, and then we'll take it from there. Yeah.
Okay, awesome.
Thank you.
Okay, good. Well, we've been on for an hour and 11 minutes. So you guys are awesome. Thank you for being here this morning. And if I can help you in any way, of course, reach out. But I loved being here. I'll be here every other Thursday morning now. And then of course I'm here the opposing Thursdays at night for Brand Builder. And last week I did a training on Instagram. Edward was on there. It was a really great training. So, you can watch that as well. Okay. Bye guys.
This was great, Shannon. Thank you so much.
Oh, you're welcome.
Yeah, thanks, Shannon.
Thank you.
Okay. You're welcome. Bye everyone.
Bye.